So I was out here last week shooting this rifle for the first time, and it had a few issues. Took it home, cleaned it, checked everything out. The tolerances between everything are super tight. I'm hoping it just needs a little break-in period, but we'll see how it goes today. Welcome back to Sawtooth Tactical. Building guns is really fun. It's really satisfying. I enjoy it almost as much as shooting them. But there are some things that you have to consider when you do it. When you're not buying a factory gun, it might not run perfectly right off the bat. Now, the good thing about it is, if you use quality parts and you know what you're doing, you can always get your gun to work. I've had a number of firearms that have had issues. A few of them that I built myself, and I've always been able to get them to work. Last week, you guys might remember that I got the first shots off with this rifle, and it wasn't what I would call reliable. It ran to an extent, but it also short stroked a few times, didn't eject sometimes, didn't pick up the next round sometimes. It was a little bit frustrating because, of course, you want to take out your new build and just get that satisfying feeling of having it run perfectly right off the bat. But sometimes that's just not a realistic expectation. But we got it running good, and we're going to talk about that today. So make sure you're subscribed to Sawtooth Tactical. Okay, she's running. Some of the issues that you could run into, especially with like an AR type direct impingement rifle, are gas issues. You might be undergassed, you might be overgassed. Other things that you might run into just have to do with using a lot of parts from different companies and something called tolerance stacking. Now, all of the parts that I use on this rifle are really high quality parts. And with high quality parts come tight tolerances. Now, if those tolerances are so tight that parts aren't going to function correctly together, well, then that can cause you a problem. When I bought this barrel, I specifically did a lot of research. I got a Roscoe barrel, and I didn't want an overgassed barrel because I didn't really want to have to use an adjustable gas block, and I wanted a nice soft shooting rifle. I didn't want something that was going to gas me out and have excess recoil that was totally unnecessary. Well, when you look for a barrel that's not going to have a really wide gas port, then you might have to worry about undergassing. A lot of that you can fix with different buffer springs and weights. So that was my initial thing to try, was going to be different buffer, different spring. But first I wanted to just see if it was just tolerances and needed a little break-in period. So it's definitely running better than it was. Still not 100%, but we're getting there. Take it. So after last week, I took it home, I took it apart, I cleaned everything really well, I oiled everything really well, and I was like, maybe that'll just take care of the issue. Sometimes it does. Nothing really new on this rifle since last week. I did just install the light setup, mod light, but you guys saw that in last week's video. Today we're literally just testing, trying to get this thing to run perfectly. So I took it back out last Saturday, just hoping for the best. and filled up a couple magazines full of ammo. And this, I was thinking, could have been part of it as well. I've got an ammo can here that's just full of 223, 5.56. I'm not even sure if I remember what brand most of it is. I've just kind of been dumping ammo in there when I buy more, and it's just kind of a mixed bag. I do have some like more specialty ammos that I just keep in the boxes so that I know what they are when I want to use them. But for regular just range plinking, I load my mags up with this ammo can, and that's what I'd done that first week. So I was thinking, well, maybe I'm a little bit undergassed and I'm possibly using underpowered ammo. So again, like I said, took it out on Saturday, ran that same, mixed bag ammo through it, and it ran better than it did the week before, but still had some issues. It is doing better for sure. I do think it kind of might just be a break-in period, tight tolerances, because it seems to be gassed correctly when it does run. It just, every once in a while, doesn't seem to pick up the next round. Locks back. So as you can see from the range footage, like I said, still had some issues. So I came home a little bit frustrated, and I was thinking that it probably had something to do with the buffer spring and weight that I had chosen. Now, what I am running in this is the Geissele Super 42 buffer system with their braided wire spring and an H2 buffer. Now, that is the exact same setup that I originally put in my 300 Blackout, which ran supersonic 300 Blackout just fine, but once I got the suppressor and tried to start running subs, it didn't work. Well, Geissele says that that Super 42 system isn't meant for subsonic 300 Blackout. But I did my research when I built this one, and they literally say for a 14.5-inch barrel to use their H2 with their Super 42 system. And so that's what I did, thinking that I would have this, the buffer weight, have everything just gassed and tuned perfectly. And when it wasn't right off the bat, I was a little bit disappointed. Back out today to do some more testing on this rifle, see if we can't get it running reliably. It definitely was doing better yesterday than the week before. The range is packed today. So I drove way out into the mountains into one of my favorite spots, and we're gonna see how this goes. First, I've got a mag of PMC Eotech 5.56 55 grain. So far, I've just been running whatever random ammo I have in a can that's probably mostly all 223 55 grain. I'm gonna see if this makes any kind of a difference. If not, I did bring a different buffer and spring with me to try that. We'll see how it goes. Having good luck so far. So I decided to go back out shooting the very next day. Loaded up a couple more mags. This time, I still use some of this mixed ammo that I've got, but I had a few boxes of PMC Eotech 5.56, 55 grain, standard ammo, but 5.56 is generally loaded, it can be loaded a little bit hotter than 223, not always necessarily, but 5.56 has to meet NATO specs, and so it does kind of have to be loaded just to a certain amount of power. And so I thought maybe that would help my issue, and that would have been a cheaper fix than anything else off the bat. I also brought some extra buffers, springs with me, just in case. Figured I would do some experimentation if it still didn't work and I had issues. But I got really lucky. I ran the first mag with it, and it ran perfectly. Well, maybe it was an ammo issue because so far we're doing well. Next mag still had like 10 rounds of that PMC X-Tac 5.56 and 20 more rounds of my mixed 223 5.56 random ammo, and that mag ran perfectly. So at that point I was really happy that my rifle build was working the way it should, and kind of confirmed my initial suspicions that maybe it's just tight tolerances and needed a little bit of a break-in period. These are things that you might have to deal with when you build a firearm yourself instead of just buying a store-bought gun. And so I ran a couple more mags through it, and perfect. No issues. Ran every round, cycled every round, locked back on the last round. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. And I came home really satisfied, really happy, excited that my new rifle build was working correctly. Now we will see if it continues to work correctly. I think that it probably will. I've had similar issues with other guns. I had some major issues with this 1911, and that's one that I didn't build, but it runs perfectly now. I had some issues with my 9mm AR, which was my very first AR build ever. Totally different issues because there is no gas system in an AR-9. Had to do with the feed cone in the barrel and rounds just kind of getting squished into there instead of feeding properly. But you can have these kinds of issues. I had an issue running subs in my 300 Blackout, and I had to fix that. These are things that you might have to work on if you are building your own guns. But that's part of the fun of it. You get to know the platform better by learning what it takes to fix it and make it run correctly. Luckily, this took minimum of anything. Really, I just had to run a bunch more rounds through it. And now it seems like it's working great. So that's the way it should be. I am using the right buffer and spring for this barrel. And so luckily it seems like it is working the way it's supposed to now. So that first magazine ran absolutely perfectly with the PMC X-Tac 55 grain 5.56. This magazine is again the random 223 5.56, whatever I had in an ammo can. Let's see if it goes. So far, so good. See if she keeps running. We call that a success. I do have some new things coming for the build series for next week. Well, maybe I shouldn't spoil the surprises, but you guys probably already know because I've talked about it in past weeks. I do have a Unity riser coming for the Eotech. I did, even though I said I was going to wait until I could afford it, I did get the magnifier on the way. I got a G43 Eotech magnifier coming. Still got to pick a sling. Again, if you have any great recommendations, drop them in the comments. I've been looking at the Blue Force Gear Vickers slings. I've been looking at Edgar Sherman design. Seems to make a good sling. I want something that can adjust quickly and easily, but I'm not sure I want like a big plastic handle hanging off it like a lot of the designs seem to have. So if you've got any great ideas, if there's a sling that you specifically love to run, let me know down in the comments. I've been running some kind of no-name brand slings on this rifle and this one for a few years now, and it's worked great. They do have the quick adjust feature. But I just figured that I might as well get a good brand name, high quality sling for a rifle that I built with all really nice high quality parts. So I got to do that, but I'm going to have the optics set up finished here really soon. I do still need to get a Unity flip to center mount for it, for the magnifier itself. And the magnifier I actually ordered in a totally different color than anything else on here. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it still looks decent. I'm sure it will. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the like, share, subscribe to Sawtooth Tactical. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. If you build your own rifles, tell me what kinds of experiences you've had having to tune them or to get them to run reliably. Because I'm sure I'm not the only one. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.